I don't buy that he's falling for any of those reasons. I think he has good sources within the league that no one really cares about how fast his 40 is, or no one really cares about what he's working out. I think everyone in the league is viewing Marvin Harrison Jr. I know there's smoke, right? I know there's smoke that some teams have the Malik neighbors higher. Some teams have Rome Odunze, the Washington receiver, higher. My opinion is Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the first receiver off the board for the same reason he would be the first receiver off the board after he finished his previous season. He did not need to weigh in. He did not need to run a 40. He did not need to run a 3-cone. Best receiver in football this past year. I'd argue he's one of the better receivers in football the past 2 years. The team that does take him is going to get, in my opinion, the comp I have for him is A.J. Green, an A.J. Green clone that people forget how good he was for the Cincinnati Bengals coming out. He will have, going into the NFL, Marvin Harrison Jr., the lowest average yards after the catch per reception of any first-round receiver over the last 10 years. That's okay because he wins before the catch. A.J. Green was the same type of player, not a guy that's the shifty, loose athlete after the catch, someone who's winning down the football field in vertical routes. He turns 50-50 balls into 75-25 his way. I think that I've been doing this for 10 years. My first mock draft was in 2014. If Marvin Harrison Jr. does not pan out, that would be the most surprising miss in this entire process. I'll have to reevaluate how I look at receivers for the rest of my life.
Yeah. It's so interesting. By the way, we are talking to Spotify and the Ringer audience engagement manager, Austin Gayle. And guys, check out the Ringer. It's fantastic. Austin does a great job. His team does a great job. You just mentioned Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Nabers and Dunze and Rome. I love what I've heard about Rome. And if anybody doesn't know the story about him at the combine, he actually stayed and did the combine over because he wanted to break all his numbers. He wanted to make sure that his numbers were even better. He showed everybody that this guy, he will do anything to be the best. And that's what you look for when you're looking for a player at the combine. A guy that's not going to give up, he's going to give it your all, and that's the type of player. But I believe Marvin Harrison is a very interesting, take over there because he didn't have a combine, really. He didn't run the combine. He didn't really do any cones. He didn't do anything. His interview, he did interview at the combine. He did speak to a couple of managers and general managers and coaches. And we all know who his father was, one of the greatest wide receivers of, his era. Obviously played with Peyton Manning. It doesn't hurt, and Reggie Wayne. But my question to you is, and you say that he's not going to fall out of that spot. Arizona, I've heard stories that Arizona really likes Malik Nabers. This is what I've heard. They like Malik Nabers. He fits what they're looking for. He's kind of like a better version of Christian Kirk. That's what they liked over there. They should have never gotten rid of Christian Kirk. He goes to the Jaguars. Look how good he has been. It's a surprise for the money that a lot of people were questioning the Jaguars. Do you think that Arizona would pass up Marvin Harrison Jr.? And if they do you see the Chargers deciding to draft Marvin Harrison Jr., or do they go after the offensive lineman? Because that's the type of coach a guy like Jim Harbaugh is. He likes to build from the trenches, and there's a guy named Alt over there sitting there who some people say is the best offensive lineman in the last 3 years of the draft. Do you believe he goes if Arizona picks Nabers? Does the Chargers go after the wide receiver or the offensive lineman?
I think that if Arizona picks Nabers over Marvin Harrison Jr. and does not trade back from 4, I think my favorite of the two options are for them to either stay put at 4 and take Marvin Harrison Jr., who I feel is the best receiver in this class. He's also among the media the consensus best receiver in this class. Or they trade out for an offer, say, from the Minnesota Vikings for pick number 11, pick 23, a future second, whatever it may be. If they don't do one of those two things and say they do take Malik Nabers, I wouldn't be upset if the franchise went into the garbage because it's over. Like, we're just done. We're done with the Cardinals after that. It's over. They don't know how to draft. They haven't been able to draft the last 20 years. Every pick they've made in the first round outside of Kyler Murray has not panned out. It's time to make a good decision. How about we make a good decision with our pick? I think that would be a bad move by the Cardinals. At number 5, how I think Jim Harbaugh is looking at that pick is he's looking to trade down. If there is a team looking to come up for a quarterback and say the Cardinals do go Marvin Harrison Jr., he's going to try and get out of that pick, allocate more capital because he needs cheap players. He just let Mike Williams leave the door because he doesn't have money. He let Keenan Allen leave for a 4th-round pick because he doesn't have money. They need money. Getting cheap players and allocating more capital by trading down is something they want to do. If they can't, if the offer isn't there, I do think they go along the offensive line. Why? Jim Harbaugh has this sexy girlfriend, right? It's Justin Herbert. It's the hot girlfriend, but he's not a guy who you get the hot girlfriend, you go get a nice sports car, maybe a new jacket and something flashy. He's like, I'm going to wear these khakis every single day, and I'm not changing who I am. This is how I win. You're either here with me or you're here without me. That's investing in the offensive line. I think it could be Joe Alt. He could be trading back and looking at Olu Fashanu, Troy Fautanu of Washington. He is going to do what he did in San Francisco, which is invest in the trenches. And the other thing he did in San Francisco, win. And I really do feel like passing on Marvin Harrison Jr. in a vacuum for what will be maybe a worse player on the consensus board and maybe a worse player in the NFL's eyes is fine as long as he's committed to the plan, which I do think long-term Harbaugh, who won in San Francisco, who won at Michigan, will find a way to win in Los Angeles as well.
You know, it's so interesting you bring up, Jim Harbaugh and what he wears, because he does wear the same khakis. He wears the same polos. Everybody makes fun of him. But that's who he is. That's what he's all about. And I respect Jim Harbaugh because it doesn't change his way. And that you definitely respect. But let's say the Chargers have a chance to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. He's sitting there. I believe he's the best player in this year's draft class. I think he predominantly the most talented player coming out of this year's class. If the Chargers trade with the Giants and trade down one spot, I could see the Giants moving up at 5. Now, we've heard that the Patriots and the Washington Commanders will not trade with the Giants. They said they will not let the Giants move up for that pick. I don't know why the Patriots care if the Giants move up at 3. I mean, they're not playing. They're not in the same division or any of that, so it makes no sense.
They're still salty for the Super Bowl.
Who knows? I have no idea why that happened. Maybe Kraft, is hanging out, hung out with Mara at one of those parlors and didn't get what he wanted. I don't know.
Maybe he's hanging out with the girl OBJ was in his bed with the pizza box.
Maybe that was the reason why too. But do you see the Giants at 5 moving up one spot to snag arguably the best wide receiver in the last 10 years? And that's crazy to say because you have Jefferson, you have CeeDee Lamb. Do you believe that the Giants could make that move and get Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I think there's a chance, but that would be just absolutely foolish by the Chargers. Like, I don't think the value makes sense. It doesn't make sense to trade back one spot and pick up, an additional 3rd, maybe a 4th, just so you pass on Marvin Harrison Jr. and have this opportunity to pick an offensive lineman when you would have just maybe picked him in that spot anyway. I don't think the Chargers make that move. The Chargers, if they're trading down, in my opinion, are coming down to the Vikings at 11 or the Raiders at 13. Like, they're looking to go a bit ways further, so they're able to add legitimate capital, potentially even a future first or a first in this year's draft, an additional first in this year's draft, to legitimately upgrade the roster with cheaper rookie contract talent. Now, for the Giants, I've heard rumors about them interested in this quarterback class, rumors about maybe them wanting to go from 6-2 or 6-3 to have the swing of the bat on, say, Jaden Daniels or Drake May or even J.J. McCarthy. I don't know if I necessarily buy that either. Talking with different people who work on the Giants beat, I think that there's more of a chance that they stay put at 6 or even trade down to try and build around Daniel Jones. Give this one more shot with Daniel Jones. Know that you can get out of the contract after this year if it doesn't pan out.